when you start to look at, like I said, the anatomy of what the eyes are, they really are your brain. It's an extension. And you can really affect the brain and how it operates just from how you move your eyes. The modern technology that we have right now, animal brains haven't caught up with it. I mean, we're still hunter-gatherers.
Aging isn't about looks as much as, it's like, and again, your looks could change if you're aging more gracefully if you're staying in your body. And I think the big question out there for everybody is this training is going to help remind you, like you just said, of the human being that you are.
I mean, kids are made of rubber. I mean, they fall, they love it, they laugh, they giggle. I mean, it's just what they do. That's how they develop that system. As we get older, like what John was alluding to, you don't move as much. And then we have screens in front of our eyes. And I think sometimes we really try to separate the mind and the body, but it really is one. And I think we're back to my point of if you want to get out of your head, you got to get it, you want to really focus on your body too.
Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. This week, we've got a treat. A guy that I met a couple months ago now, maybe 3 months ago, Caydrick Bloomquist, goes by Cade. He's been helping me through some therapy called vestibular therapy and ocular therapy, and we're going to cover that here in a while. But let me tell you a little bit about Cade. Cade, he was a pole vaulter before. We're going to get into what brought him into what he's doing now, and that's human performance. He's a human performance specialist dedicated to advancing the frontier of neurofunctional training and mental fitness, which is, that's a mouthful in and of itself. But man, we're going to break that down. But his work really optimizes or is working on optimizing the body's natural resilience to improve balance, which as we get older, that gets more and more important, not just so that we can ski better, but really falls. That's a big thing. As you get older, we really want to be able to manage that, and we'll get into that. Coordination, emotional regulation, which is wild to think about how the vestibular system can actually help with emotional regulation and sleep. Anyway, these are all key elements for both high performance and everyday well-being. So we're super excited to have Cade here with us. Cade, welcome to the show, my friend.
Happy to be here. Love this.
Yeah,
right on,
thank
man.
You. Thanks for joining us.
Will, my brother from another mother, they're in New York City with a newly shaved beard, looking all clean cut.
I got a haircut
now.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. We got to change. We're going to change roles, John. I feel like a seal actually today. Amazing. So I don't know, something just happened and all of a sudden I'm stronger and tougher and no more things. I don't know. But actually, I'm really curious to know what you were talking about earlier, all these things, because I'm going to be kind of the dummy here in some ways because I've actually never heard of any of this kind of work before. John's talked about it. I've seen videos that John has done, with this kind of work. I'm like, what the F is going on here? So I'm excited to unpack. No, I'm excited to unpack, honestly. And, really quick, May 31st, join us in Colorado Springs. We have another Spartan race we're going to do. John and I are going for a second part of our trifecta. Maybe you can join us for your first piece of the trifecta. It sounds like we're going to do a third one eventually, John. So mentalkingmindfulness.com to find out more of that. And
Cade signed up.
Cade, see that? God damn, we got a nice little team.
On the team, man.
Yeah, awesome.
Trio already.
I do, and I think and we have Karen out there who's coming, and
Travis Hearn signed up. We got a handful.
Clint's going already.
Oh, so,
nice.
Colorado
seems like our spot. But let's do our one breath grounding practice. Find that seat. It's just one breath, right? But it can really make a big difference and drop you into the moment. And it starts by just starting with a nice big exhale out your mouth. Get heavy, drop down, empty, empty, empty all the way out. Take a big inhale through your nose. Big and feeling big, giant, a little bit more. Feel maybe even into your head. Hold. And exhale, let it go out. Soften, relax, let it go. Hopefully a little more present. And hey, what we're really asking for nowadays, it's leave some comments on Spotify. We've seen more comments on Spotify. It's a great way for not only us, but Caydrick can drop in there and, comments or kind of ask your question in the comments. That's a great way to stay in touch. But like, share, subscribe, maybe social media posts would be great to help us to grow. And thank you. Great to have you here. And John, let's kick it off, man.
Let's get into this, man. So as I was saying in the intro, Cade and I have become friends. I've been doing this work with him for about 6 weeks. Met him several months back, but been doing it for about 6 weeks. And I've seen dramatic improvements in my balance, as well as my eyes and the whole system tying together. But then the mental health aspect of it too, it's pretty wild. But before we get too far into that, let's ask you, Cade, how did you find yourself doing this work in the first place?
That's a good question. I'm still asking myself that sometimes.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I mean, I think it really goes back to me being an athlete. I think that was the biggest introduction. Particularly, I mean, I grew up playing basketball. My dad was a basketball coach. So, just from early on, I was always an athlete. So I think being an athlete balances everything. But the thing that really pushed me over the top was pole vault. Pole vault was probably the biggest thing. Honestly, I never had a desire to be a pole vaulter. I started as a freshman in high school. I know that sounds crazy because pole vault ended up being the thing that I was best at. And I hated the fact that I was better at pole vault than I was basketball. And that's the honest to God truth. I tell this story how I even got into pole vault. It was basically because I had a crush on a girl.
It doesn't always.
Yeah.
That's how I found yoga. Well, I mean,
that's why I stuck with track and cross country.
Yeah.
I loved it too. But.
Co-ed, man. Co-ed sports.
That's right.
Basketball guy. And it was a choice between doing baseball because I grew up playing baseball. Really between basketball and baseball, those were my two sports. And my dad, my freshman year, he's like, you have to go out for a sport in the spring. And the baseball team that for my high school wasn't like my club team, wasn't really the guys that I jived with. And I was just driving home one day, or I was walking home one day, and the girl that I had the biggest crush on was doing pole vault. So I was like, I'll try that. That looks great. I had no idea.
That looks great. Not the sport. I think you're like,
absolutely.
What's she doing over there?
Yeah. I was like, she pole vaults. Well, I pole vault now too. So it was a really easy decision. My dad didn't. I mean, he was like, he thought I chose it because I was like trying to be a daredevil, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. That's
pole vaulters are crazy, man.
Yeah,
pole vaulters, you got to be crazy.
Yeah, it's part of the wiring, and it takes, especially, to be good at it, you kind of have to have that piece or no pieces, those lost screws, as I say. So, that really, for me early on, and honestly, like I really fell in love with pole vault. And, to this day, like I never dated her. So, that never worked out. The girl that I had a crush on.
I feel you. I feel you.
Did you at least step up and ask her out? Did you ask her out?
Yeah, we actually, I did get to take her to a dance.
Okay. All right. Well,
yeah.
We got kind of close.
And that was, And then it was funny because she became a school record holder in pole vault as well. And I was a school record, holder. And it seemed like it was going to work out, but she was too smart for me.
The one that got away, man. I think we all have one of those.
Yeah. She was jumping away at this point. And
oh, Jesus.
And I think, when it comes to the work I do now, because I think when you look at what we're doing, when we talk about the vestibular and the balance stuff, and we'll get into that, it really was out of the box type thinking. And you kind of had to have a little bit of that send it mentality in a weird way. Like you kind of had to, look at it from a different angle. And that was pole vault for me. It was very intuitive in a sense. And I had, I checked all the boxes. I was fast. I was athletic, and basketball really helped translate to pole vault because it was really like trying to go up and dunk a ball. You really had to jump like you were trying to dunk it. And so long story short, I, just kept with it, and I had a lot of college recruiting that took place more with pole vault than basketball. But my story, I could sit here and talk for 3 hours just about what happened my freshman year of college that really probably pushed me in a lot of directions for health and fitness in general. Cause I really wasn't I really did not see myself as anything as I am right now. The honest to God truth, I wasn't going to be, I didn't want to be a coach because my dad was a coach, and I kind of just I just saw what that was. And, I really had no desire to be a coach. I didn't really have a desire to be a trainer. But I had some really pivotal experiences my freshman year of college when I got hospitalized. I have Crohn's disease, so I ended up having 22 inches of intestine resected at age 19. Literally my freshman year of college. They talk about the freshman 15. Well, I had the freshman negative 65. And it was a experience where it was, like I said, it was a life or death experience. I died clinically 3 times. I ended up having to wear a colostomy bag for a year and a half.
This is after the operation?
Yeah. So basically it was kind of thought I had, appendicitis. It kind of presented itself that way. And, just that pain in that region of where that is. And then they end up going in to do the appendectomy. And it turns out they're like, we got bigger problems. So it just kind of turned into what was going to be a real easy, kind of standard surgery of kind of taking that out. And it turned into a 5-month stay. And and I had, like I said, just within that experience, it was really what shifted me in every direction I am now. And it really gets into kind of where we're at with what I do per se with balance and, the mindfulness training, the emotional aspect of that. It gets into the eyes. And I think a lot of the things, as John well knows, I train the eyes a lot. And I try to integrate that system and what we were talking about at the intro with what we call neurofunctional training, or now it's really just neurofitness. And I kind of joke, he's like, you could put neuro in front of anything now.
Thanks to Andrew Huberman.
That's true. That's very true.
You can just really, it's pretty ambiguous there. But I mean, it's really, for me, a lot of it is just strength and conditioning. And that's kind of the cloth that I'm cut from. And I ended up, I made it through that experience, and I kind of took some different routes. But for the most part, I ended up graduating from a small NAIA school where I did 2 sports. I played basketball and I did track and field. But once again, I was better at pole vault than basketball, but I was an All-American. I set school records at my school, Southwestern College. And I just, it was something that for me is kind of weird because pole vault, I didn't think I'd ever pole vault after that hospital experience just because I was cut from, my entire stomach. I had, a bunch of scar tissue. I mean, I had to relearn how to walk after this experience. A lot of times, we don't realize how, important our core is just from standing upright until you get it taken away. So I spent, clearly a lot of time within the medical world, from a patient standpoint that was really formidable for me to have a lot more empathy for people in those situations. And it really molded me to have that insight or the empathy that comes with that. And yes, and I struggled. And John, we talked about it a lot. There's a lot of things, when it comes to the mindfulness space. And that's why I really love this podcast, because there's a lot, like mindfulness is a bunch of tools, right? I mean,
yeah, 100%.
And some tools work better for others. And, it just really is, it's something stuff that resonates with you personally. So, for me, obviously breath work has been the biggest. And I think that's pretty standard across the board. But something that was really formidable for me was eye exercises, as silly as that sounds. But when you start to look at, like I said, the anatomy of what the eyes are, they really are your brain. It's an extension. And you can really affect the brain and how it operates just from how you move your eyes. And like I said, that's, not to get into the science or the deep weeds of that. But there was a lot of little techniques that really were helpful for me within my hospitalization that ironically I started to use for my own performance in sports later on, that then translated into what I do now and helping people, once again, giving them more tools. And then, like I said, and then I got certified through all, this NSCA, CSCS. I was a USAW. level 1 performance coach, and I just continued to fall along that realm of sport performance. I really, in my heart of hearts, I wanted to be the sports performance guy. Like my ultimate goal was to be the sports performance director of the Olympic Training Center. And that was like, when I set my goal, I was like, I'm going to do this. And that's what, I started off with an internship out of Team USA weightlifting. It took me into a role with Colorado Institute of Sports Medicine, which is all here in Colorado Springs. And I always used the term, proximity of power. So I just wanted to be close to the big boys and where all that stuff was going on. And little did I know how, fortunate I would get. I got to spend a lot of time at the Air Force Academy, working with a lot of those athletes and, having that CSCS. And I tell a lot of young trainers or, people within the training environment, especially sport performance. I mean, you really need to get those certifications, regardless with your education. It's just the gold standard, and it really is the best education in my opinion. And there's a lot out there. So I always, and I was very fortunate. I had some good mentors that pointed me in the right direction. And, and I just took it for what it was, and a lot of doors opened for that reason. And I just loved it. Like I said, if you've been to the Air Force Academy, I was a kid in a candy shop. I got spend a lot of time, hanging around in the human performance department there. And that's really, I think, as I got more and more to what I love doing, specifically what I do right now, it seems to be obviously in that human performance part of the world. And, it's just, I just wanted to play with the toys. And I think it was, a little bit more selfish for the reasons of was like, what can this do for me? And, and I think that's where a lot of, great practitioners, you really come from. It's very intrinsic. It's kind of where you want to start. And that's what makes, especially in the health and fitness space and strength and conditioning, you really got to have that desire from your perspective. And I'm very passionate about it, and I still love it, obviously. And that's something that it really gave me a great platform where I'm at now. And then, like I said, just continue to go out with my career. Somehow I ended up as a civilian Marine at the United States Marine Corps with HQ over there at Quantico. So Quantico was just one of the most formidable parts of my young career. And I once again got to see everything across the enterprise, got to be involved with a lot of the human performance development that they were doing, which is now warrior athlete readiness and resilience, which I think, as John can speak on more than anybody, it's very important. And it kind of goes into that resilience factor. And that is really one of those tools, those toolkits. And then, like I said, now where I'm at as a contractor and the things that I do on my own, where I had that freedom to kind of explore those routes and really got into the neurofitness space. And a lot of that was because with my father, he has a lot of cognitive degeneration and with Parkinson's particularly. And I just started to see, how beneficial a lot of these little fitness modalities and movement, as much as anything, as we get into the balance and as I always say, movement versus medicine. I mean, we live in a very pharmaceutical intervention world where there's a pill for everything. So for me, I just being a strength and conditioning guy, I wanted to push towards more movement. And I think, with yoga and the things that, you align in those things, it was important to me that, for having those, that education and reality is, if you look at our population, most people, if you go by just the obesity side of things, we really aren't, if we're so educated, then we're not executing. And so that's where I really tried to push towards the execution part. And I really love working with general population. I mean, it's just as much as anything, everybody, we all have a body, so I can relate with everybody. So, and then where I'm at now, with some of my colleagues in that neuro space, I started working with this lady called Sheila Thielen, who is out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And she's the real mastermind behind what we now are doing within the vestibular training.
Let's talk about that, man. So vestibular, the three of us, Will's a biology major, so he knows vestibular. I've been working with you, and I have a little bit of background in some biology, but I certainly don't have my degree in it, but I know what vestibular means. But not to insult our audience's intelligence, but for those who may not know, what is the vestibular system? And can you explain that in a way that, knuckle draggers like myself can understand?
Well, you gotta live a grunt. I think you gotta grunt when you say that.
No, that's a great question, because you say vestibular, and it's a foreign word to a lot of people, but it's the one thing that keeps you upright. It's your balance system. It's the sensory somatic organ within that inner ear. And it's located right there on your ears, like right there on your cochlars. And you got two of them, one on each side. And it is the gyroscope. So it gives you your sense in space. And I think when we talk about also your eyeballs, so your eyes and your vestibular system are very intricately connected. So it's really just that simple. It's the balance organ.
So we talk about training it. Like, am I not training it all the time? Like, haven't I been training it since I'm a child? And like, how's more training kind of matter, if you will?
No, that's honestly the best question. And you pointed to it, like early childhood development. You go watch a little kid right now at the playground. What are they doing? They're spinning.
Yeah. Wow. Good point.
You see the merry-go-rounds. We had that game where you put that bat on your forehead. You'd spin around and see if you could run in a straight line.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's fun. You go watch kids, and they love it. They giggle. Then they'll fall to the ground.
Like my three kids are sitting out here right now, and they love spinning. They love me grabbing their hands and spinning them around the room, right? Wow. And I can only do it for so long before I start getting sick.
Yeah.
And then there's this place here in Colorado Springs called the North Pole. And it's basically like a small amusement park. And it's got this really ridiculously simple ride. It's just elevated swings. It swings in a circle, and the swings kind of go out with the centripetal force.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I used to love that ride. And I got on it, and I was like, what the hell? I'm going to throw up on this ride. And here I am, this guy who's flown in helicopters, been on boats, and at that time, your vestibular system is being used. But then I retired. And what have I been doing most of my time since I've been retiring? Sitting behind a computer, staring, and my head barely moves. I mean, even in this conversation, right, I'm staring at a camera. With that spinning or lack thereof, with our age, that stuff starts to harden in our ear, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And, like what you were just saying, which I get a lot, because that's primarily I work with the active aging population for the most part, where they start to see that they're sensitive to those movements. But it always goes back to, like I said, that early childhood development, where I always point to what's the most human thing about us, and it's really the thing that we celebrate, right? When we're born, it's walking, right? I mean, it's like,
that's true. You're like, hey, yeah, first steps, right? Think about first steps. It's like we kind of never forget that date, or if you're there when it's happening, you're like, oh my God, I saw the first step. But yeah,
and it goes into the first words. So I mean, we celebrate that one little thing of just that movement of being able to balance on your feet. And then it turns into, as we age, we celebrate the fact that we can still stand. So it's just it's these two parallels, but they're the same thing. And I think that's where all my training really comes back to, where we get into the emotional side too, but it's really just about the ability to stay upright and be the most human version of yourself. So with movement, and as we say, movement is development, and as you're a child, the reason why you love it, because you're plastic, you're developing still. Like your systems are extremely resilient. I mean, kids are made of rubber. I mean, they fall, they love it, they laugh, they giggle. I mean, it's just what they do. That's how they develop that system. And then as we get older, like what John was alluding to, you don't move as much. And then we have screens in front of our eyes, and we have, I'm not telling anybody anything new, but we're a very sedentary society. And that goes into so many other parts of our health, right? So, and that is why it's so important when we talk about just movement, and, whether it's just in the sagittal plane or whatever plane it is, movement is the most important basic human part about who we are.
Right. Wow. I'm thinking I'm never going to look at an amusement park the same. No, because seriously. I mean, think of like the teacups. Think of what you were talking about, spinning thing, John. Think of right. I mean, right. Man. All of it. It's like, it's almost like there is this natural inclination as society to continually fine tune this vestibular system. Right. I mean, because it's like everywhere. Like, I mean, and there is like a certain joy about it, even as an adult sometimes. Like, I like to go dancing. We're spinning around, like we're having a good time. Like lights are like fuck with my eyes, right? And you're saying the eyes are probably messing with my vestibular complex as well. So it's just like there's this kind of enthusiasm or like excitement that comes. Is that part of like, is that? It seems like an intuitive part of us. Is that true? I mean, to be able to do this, like, because is it to seek more balance or to have more resilience or be stronger? You know what I mean? Or like to be able to like be, yeah, whatever. Yeah, let me know. Yeah.
No, I mean, you nailed it. You said dancing. Why do people dance? And they enjoy it. It's fun. One of my best friends, he loves two-stepping, and I'm not so great at it. But I mean, you watch him, and he's a pro. He's twirling these girls around. He's swinging them on his hip, and they're just, they love that. I mean, that's part of being a human is moving, and it's that dynamicness that is, as we get older, we tend to kind of forget that that's the most human part of us.
I got to share this video just to kind of give some context on what all this looks like. So, for those listening, I would love if you tuned in to the video. You can watch it on Spotify, or you can watch it on YouTube on the Valor Media Network. But basically, this video, let me see if I can get this to work, explains a little bit of it. We're looking at myself here. I'm set up on a harness that's connected to the ceiling, and thankfully, Cade holds this harness while I'm spinning. And I've got, on this video, I've got blindfolds on. I've got earphones in, and I'm jamming some music. And then we've got this thing on our chest. Cade and I, we added this just for fun. It's called the Wooger, and it's connected via Bluetooth to the music, and it vibrates on your chest. So it sends the signal. And this comes all back to what you were just talking about, Will, how fun it is. I'll be honest, this therapy was actually pretty fun. So check this out. All right. Here I am doing some vestibular therapy with Caydrick Bloomquist. Been doing it for about 5 weeks now. Making some progress, spinning counterclockwise and clockwise with this thing on my chest, the Wooger without it, with the blindfold without it, with headphones without it, doing the ocular therapy simultaneously. But yeah, trying it all out and seeing some pretty dramatic results, pretty wild stuff. This is some of the vestibular stuff. And then this is the plate that you spin around on. So you can see Cade holding on to me, making sure I don't fall. And then I did some backwards walking with the stick. This is all the ocular side of things. And then at the end, you'll see here in a second, this is my score. At the top, the 251 vestibular, if you can see that, that is in the 0 percentile. I'm not even in
that's like zero. That's a high rank.
So I'm way low.
Right.
And then after 6 weeks, I was at the 88 path lengths. So you stand with your hands on your shoulders, your hands on your hips, eyes open. Then the next thing is hands on hips, eyes closed. Then next thing, hands on hips on a foam platform, eyes open. And then the last one, hands on hips, eyes closed on the hand, on this platform. That's what this 251 and this 88 number is. But if you look at the percentile below that, literally the first test I did, 0 percentile. That's how bad my vestibular system was. And then after 6 weeks, I'm in the 27 percentile. So pretty interesting to see those actual results, but also to watch the video, you can kind of see that how it works, but it's also fun. Like I said, like it's literally fun. And And there's mindfulness built into it. Like we're the whole time, Kate is like, okay, do some deep breathing in, breathing out. And you start doing some box breathing and I got into, I'm going to say this wrong here, Kate. What was it? A vestibular hallucination. After spinning for 9 minutes, I got to a point where I was like, because I had sensory deprivation, I had the eye shades on, I had the headphones in, noise canceling. I was like, oh, dude, it's fun. And it's powerful and it's challenging. But about 9 minutes or so in, I was like, oh, we're done. And I thought I'd actually stopped spinning.
Wow.
Because my system thought, because everything had been deprived, I went into this vestibular hallucination. Is that, am I saying it right, Kate?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I thought that I'd stopped spinning. And then when Kate did actually stop it, that's when I was like, oh crap, I've been spinning this whole time. It was bizarre. But anyway, I wanted to show that. And then, it's like now that we've shown it, we talked about balance, but why, if somebody doesn't think that they're got any problem or if they're not, struggling with balance, how else could this help them?
Yeah. And that's like what we talk about, with those scores, if, the audience is looking at that, and what we're doing on there is the modified CAT-SIB, which is really the gold standard for testing people's balances. And that's something where we get into that mindfulness practice. And that's something that I really try to make that an important part of this training, because you're not going to be with me all the time. This training is typically one time a week, twice a week, depending on the person and the time availability. But, I try to make sure that you have the tools when you walk out of that door. And the most important tool that you have, or a couple of them, but is really your breath. So we really focus heavily on the breathing part. And I think, I'll tell you guys, but a lot of people don't know how to breathe properly. And that's something that, it's something you take it with you everywhere. Because, if you're, and breathing is just the most just human part, just like standing's the most human part. And then adding within the eyes, like I said, we try to connect all of those dots. And it's really about regulating that nervous system. And, we have just those two big systems, part of that autonomic nervous system. And that's, that's sympathetic and that's the parasympathetic. And the biggest thing, for what this training is, a lot of people associate spinning with dizziness. And my ultimate goal is not to make you dizzy, it's to make you resilient to that sympathetic system. So when we bring in that breathing and that breath training, it's really kind of training that subconscious to breathe during those sympathetic states. So it's kind of a trick of me to, like I tell everybody, I'm training you to be more of a meditation practitioner without you knowing it.
Yeah.
And, and that's what I love about the human body. I mean, it's the most, it's an extremely resilient device already. Our bodies are built to be resilient. We did not evolve to this point in humankind without resilience. And that's kind of like those internal systems that we've kind of gotten away from, or we're just not as in tune to just towards modern society. We have all these other external distractions, and humans love technology. Technology is, what we do best. We're great at creating new things, but that takes us away from remembering how miraculous our human bodies are. And that's where, as I was telling John, a lot of these things, when you experience that time dilation, because a lot of people, especially when we start taking those other sensory organs out of the play, especially your ocular, is that you kind of really get into a deep flow state. And, the keys with flow state is one of this is definitely time dilation. And, the big word there is introception. Like, I want to bring your mind's eye back into the body. So I really want you to feel those systems. And what we're really measuring and what we're really training is that proprioception. That's the feeling you're feeling yourself in space. The ocular, which I always ask people, is it easier to walk with your eyes open or closed? Which typically they like to walk with their eyes open. And then, obviously that vestibular system, which is that balance, that's that orientation. So it makes more sense when we start to train the system and the person to be able to tap into those when they're in that state where they might feel uncomfortable. And, my whole philosophy on life is, exiting that comfort zone. And that's where you have that growth. And that's where, with balance, as we are just discussing, it's the most human part of us. But I want to be able to tie in the tools and the devices that are also built in to help you deal with just external parts of life, the things that we can't control. And we can learn to control our internal systems a lot easier than the external systems. So, and I think that's the most important factor.
If as we train or as we become more, I don't know if the right word is agile on this front, like, if you will, how does that translate into other aspects of our humanity? Like, I have in our notes here, like, does that help us to release from stress and anxiety, or do we get better sleep, or, is there anything, that you see kind of like comes along with this kind of training outside of just balance?
Absolutely. And that's the fun part about getting into the science of the vestibular system. And like I said, once again, to keep this at a 30,000 foot view, I always ask people, if you have children, how do you put them asleep? You rock them, right? And a part of this training that really has been really the more fascinating part, it's really the big reason why I was so fascinated with it, was because of the sleep application. And it really allows people, and everybody's different, with sleeping, but personally, this, for a lot of people that measure their biometrics, we're trying to increase REM sleep, and we're trying to increase the deep sleep. And sleep has been probably one of the bigger factors amongst all the populations I've worked with, where they start to get that restful sleep now. And once again, every population's different. The brain is a very intricate machine just in itself. But when we start to kind of put that into the equation, we start to really allow that flexibility of that vestibular organ within those fluids, within those semicanals, where all that little liquid and those crystals, you'll hear a lot of people with vertigo saying, I got to reset my crystals, and they'll do these head movements. And it's really just in the same way I talk about cardio health. If I was to ask you to go run 5 miles on a treadmill or whatever, and you've never ran 5 miles ever, you're probably not going to run 5 miles very well, because your cardio system is really not built. It's, the resilience, the flexibility. You haven't pumped enough blood to the muscles. You don't have the dynamics. And that's where we start to train that vestibular system to flow a little bit better. And that's why do we sleep with our head down? It's just, it puts us into these states as much as anything that we know we're ready to sleep, or that's just as much as the human part of us who we are. And then there's a lot more to it. Like I said, I'm really just glossing over that part, but that training really is building that resilience in that muscle to work better, right? And that's really what this comes back to. And you have a lot of other cool benefits, and that's just one of the best ones is, I think everybody really, besides all the sleep hygiene things, and I think those are extremely important, and, not to get into the lights in the eyes and the screens and things like that. But, it's like movement really helps, like exercise will help with your sleep. And there's so many neurochemicals that get released. And in part of this training too, when you start to really activate that peripheral nervous system. And I always tell people, I'm really training the brain, in this neurospace, we have a lot of devices that go towards the brain first. But like I said, movement is medicine for me, so I focus on the peripheral system. So it's more of the peripheral to the main, control center versus trying to affect the control center to the outside. And it's another way of moving the body that has been, like I said, something that has been probably more my biggest fascination than ever, in seeing its outcomes and how it's helping people, and particularly me. I'm, like I said, the most selfish person in this, because the benefits that I have from this are just profound, and I can't speak on that enough.
For someone listening, right? So I showed the spinning plate, the harness, and everything else, but not everybody has access to that, right? I mean, I didn't have access to that. I wouldn't have had access to that if it weren't for you being down the road in Colorado Springs. What's something people can do at home not necessarily to get the same level of effect, but something, right? I mean, I'm sitting here in a chair that goes around. Should I just spin myself around in this chair a couple of times? I mean, what does something look like for somebody who doesn't have access to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing I always try to tell people, I mean, it's a safety thing. Why to definitely work with somebody that you want to be strapped in. I mean, we're closing our eyes, we're doing things like that. There's definitely a safety issue if you're spinning around in your kitchen. And we don't want to do that. And like I said, my goal isn't to make people dizzy. And John, like we're going very slow. And I think as you get to certain degrees and certain people's capabilities, sometimes that slow speed is too much. I work with people that when I first started with them, they can only go around for like 3 rotations, and that's enough. But that same person is coming back, and I get them to the point where they can spin with their eyes closed for 15 minutes, no problem, at higher and higher speeds. And I really always approach that from a progressive overload, just slowly building. But for people, like I said, just with none of that device, like spinning isn't necessarily the only way to activate the vestibular system. And, that's what we get into those eye exercises, the vestibular ocular reflex exercises. And that's where we start to integrate the eyes with the movement. And, just some of the stuff that you might have saw in this video where we utilize this neuro stick, which is really a popsicle stick with a googly eye glued onto it.
It's proprietary. Man.
You can find it on Amazon for $50. I'm making 800% profit. So, but no, you can use your finger. Like this is within a lot of this stuff. This is very much in the clinical setting where there's so many of those already. Z Health by Dr. Cobbs. He's been around forever. I'm not the only person that has applied this by any means, so I haven't discovered fire. So this isn't necessarily new. But I just think that, just like in the rehab world, always transfers over into the performance world in one way or the other. Like we always see that. And, typically, with balance, we have a huge kind of, like I said, an epidemic of people with falling and just being able to stand upright. And, I'd be more surprised there's people that have more vertigo than, you realize. And, they suffer with it, not knowing, how to deal with it. You can go to these clinics, I always tell people start with, like your healthcare professional first. Like I'm not going to be the person, especially with anything in the brain. You really want to start there. All right. Now for the things for people, like I said, they're cleared, they're checked off. I have resources. I love to send these things to people. But at the same time, just you can close your eyes and you can turn your head like standing if you're doing that standing, and just standing and trying to close your eyes and do circles with your head can be quite disorienting and can be kind of difficult. Then you can take that into the next step. You can do progressions. You can try to do that on one foot. Right. And then you can try to do that, like I said, with your eyes open, walking, moving your head. Right. And then like with what we do here, at my gym, we bring in my nice, fun little neuro stick. I have one right here. So you can do these, like I said, from these VOR exercises, vestibular ocular reflex exercises. And it's really simple. I mean, there's a lot of information out there. Now, it's just kind of like the recipe book. It's like, how do you apply it for your particular case? And that's what I really try to implement that more than anything. And because that's really that's the functional part of the training when you call it neurofunctional. And my ultimate goal is to get you to move better with smoother motions and to connect all those sensory systems to work smoother, right? Trying to get those feedback loops from, like I said, the command up here down to the boys in the field, and get that loop to shorten up so it's quicker and quicker. And, we talk about balance. I talk about balance a lot, and balance is a conversation that, there's a lot of opinions, and health and fitness has a lot of opinions just in its own. But, we talk about mobility, ankle mobility is a huge one. And, I think that's really important. If you're at home, you can then take it to the next level. You can do that same exercise with your eyes closed, one foot, maybe you're on a folded towel or a pillow. If you have a gym, your access to that, you can do it on one of those Bosu balls. We use the AirX pad. And those are, like I said, simple things. And, I really, as much as in the balance world, it's all about safety first. And traditionally, a lot of the clients that I work with, the active aging population, I really do a lot of these eye exercises just in a seated position. And, that's, once again, a safety kind of thing. And then we can scale the difficulty with utilizing some of these vestibular training equipment like the spinning. But at home, I think there's a lot of things that you can do, but it's really going to be coming down to the level of the capability. And I think the best place to start is just training your eyes. That will make tremendous leaps and bounds, even from a seated position. And it's really connecting, like I said, the eyes and the vestibular system and making that connection a lot stronger. And that helps out tremendously.
Well, it seems like it is all about this whole training the system is so much about becoming more capable, right? And but also fine tuning as you become more capable, with greater agility. You talked about flow a little bit, not necessarily flow state, but just being able to move more easily, move more fluidly, move more gently, if you will, and also I'd imagine is kind of awareness, environmental awareness part of this too. I'd imagine I'm going to be, instead of, if I'm so always just staring at a screen or always very sedentary, so therefore I have this very myopic, narrow view of the world. Because literally the narrow view of my eyes are just on a fucking, whatever, a 7-inch screen. So this is going to help, I guess, my periphery, right? So it's wow. It sounds like, now you're convincing me, It's not like I came in as a skeptic, but I'm really what is this going to do?
Yeah, he did. He was who is this guy? What kind of sorcery is he selling us?
You should actually see our text. I'm like, what the fuck, John? Are we blowing up an episode on this guy? No, but then I'm looking at what I do. No, not at all. But then I look at what I do. I have the yoga that I teach, the yoga that I do, the things that I do. And sometimes I ask my students to close their eyes and move. Right. And I think one of the reasons, maybe New York, honestly, that's hitting me, just like the playground, it's New York is so robust and the people are so kind of, strong here because this city, we move around a lot. I'm fucking doing 15,000 steps a day sometimes, but I'm not just walking straight on the street. I need to check my periphery because a fucking bike or a car or a siren's going off. So I need to kind of be in my environment. I'm walking up and down stairs. I'm going up and down off the subway. I need to move around people. It's a very busy city. So I need to be, so I could see I feel just fortunate for the work that I do in the city I live in to kind of I'm sure I know I could benefit from this training 100%, but you look at a lot of our population, whether it's older population or younger population, everything in between, we are doing a lot of sitting. We are very sedentary. We're not using our body. What it was designed for is to move in this world, to be a force, and if we really want to take control of our lives, a predominant creative force, and requires not just a brain, right? But how does the brain really begin to wake up is through movement. We get endorphins that come online, right? We can upgrade as men our testosterone. So we just have this sense of power and ability. Anyway, so now you sold me.
This is, and I wanted to touch on that point because I'm a big yoga practitioner. I love yoga. And in yoga, if you want to, that's a really good way to train those systems, the balance, we
fucking balance all the time. I was doing half moon yesterday. You know what I mean?
Moon,
it was just right.
Tree
all of it,
pose,
all of them. You know what I mean? But it's also, and tell me, okay, for yoga, one thing that when we do balance, we talk about the drishti, right? You know what I mean? It's the drishti, John, and everyone that's listening, it's it's a one spot that you're not laser pointed at, right? But you're just kind of softly focusing on that one spot. So it actually, so you're in your body, you have your breath, which I think if you have a nice balance between your inhale and your exhale, that's going to kind of create more homeostasis in your body. I'm still gazing at this point, I'm in balance, and it's but also the eyes are going to help just to focus more of the body, I'd imagine, right? And then I'm also finding that balance that through the proprioception in my body, right? Through my legs, through my core, my head is very heavy. You know what I mean? My arms are could be, if they're not grounded in some way and utilized for the balance, they could be very, they could throw us off balance. So take us into what you're learning, how you're seeing yoga is plugging into this.
I mean, like yoga, I mean, like I said, a lot of the populations, like I was saying, within the Parkinson population, Tai Chi is huge, right? I mean, there's different.
We just had George Thompson on, who's a big Tai Chi practitioner.
Yeah. And I think, boxing is a great one. You get the hand-eye coordination in there. I mean, there's like, I think it's sometimes we overcomplicate this topic, right? And it really, as much as anything, you got to move, you got
to fucking move.
And, when we talk about kind of getting into the intricacies of training the eyes, I mean, you have muscles moving your eyes. I mean, we just don't look at it like that all the times because, the thing I always tell people, like fish discover water last, and it's the most obvious thing. In so many ways, it's like missing the forest for the trees. And that's just as simple as I say, is movement. And doing yoga with your eyes closed is another great way to really engage that system, the vestibular system. And keep in mind, you're training your vestibular system just by sitting upright in your chair. Like where I talk about just even doing a meditation practice or, this breath work practice. If you can sit tall in your chair, and those are going to engage those systems. And it's so simple, but, once again, we're humans and we like to complicate things. So that's what we do best.
Yeah, our mind likes to complicate things, but our bodies really things want very simple. They want it centered, they want it aligned, they want it to be strong.
Yeah.
Right. Like
and I'm out here at Spire Institute here in Geneva, Ohio right now. I just did a whole neuro presentation on my whole protocol and everything. And
nerding out on
all me
complex.
Me and my neuro nerds.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry.
And I
whatever, Will, we're just as much
totally
nerd, man. We love this
I'm
stuff.
like laughing at myself here, or all of us,
Yeah. And and I think sometimes like we really try to separate the mind and the body, but it really is one.
No, of course it is.
And and I think where back to my point of like, if you want to get out of your head, you got to get it. You want to really focus on your body too. I mean, but it's all centrally located. It's all the same thing. If, we're talking mindfulness, talking, ancient sacred sciences, the Buddhists, they'd call the brain and the heart because they always distinguished. They didn't think there was any distinguish between the mind and the heart, and they call it the Sita. And so, and we, I go into the heart, you feel about the emotions, things like that. You can train the mind through so many different ways. And, but particularly the reason why I focus on eyeballs so much is because you just nailed it. We're staring at screens. We have our phone and our eyes aren't moving.
Look how tiny it is. Exactly. Yeah. Look how tiny it is.
You're not moving up and down. We were evolved. And like I said, the modern technology that we have right now are like, animal brains haven't caught up with it. I mean, we're still hunter-gatherers. Like, we're still, and like I said, Dr. Huberman talks about this all the time. I think John and I have, kind of, once again, nerded out on him. Big fan. And, you can do these saccaded eye movements, and that kind of gets back into like my origin story of when I was hospitalized. Like, I was incapable of taking these more, deep breaths to activate the parasympathetic system to calm down and cool down. Because I had a lot of I just couldn't breathe. I mean, through my diaphragm, my chest, it was too painful. But I had a nurse who was really she saved my life. And to this day, I mean, I still think about it way too much, but she's like, just move your eyes side to side as fast as you can. And that can really have a down-regulating effect. And you can really get into that parasympathetic system just through those things. And that will ultimately train all those other intricate connected systems. And then you can start, once again, adding those variations and those progressions. And I'm really big on that progressive overload. And, those are little activities. And like I said, John, we work on these in my gym, and they're things that you can do anywhere. You can do them just, like I said, at your home. You only really need about the size of a yoga mat. Like, I teach classes all the time where I have a yoga mat and you're just walking forward and backwards doing these eye exercises, like, it's very simple stuff. And, and I just think that where we've been at just real recently, and that's why we're seeing, like I said, the biggest thing about as we get older, falling becomes a very, very, it's debilitating. And, when I even talk, we go back to the commercials, help, I've fallen and I can't get up. that has been so inundated into our culture that it's really,
it's almost accepted.
It's accepted. It's like, that's just a part of getting old.
Yeah.
And, you know, and
sad.
And it is the most debilitating things. You know, a lot of the people I work with, I mean, they're afraid to get out of bed. And, you know, especially as
there's some, there's some crazy number. I want to say it's like, if you break your hip following and you're in like the elderly, what is it? It's like 60 or 70% are going to die within the next year. Yeah. If you,
I just had that conversation with my mom. My mom is like really banged up, and this like really hits home because like she's really sitting a lot, like her knees all messed up, and like, so like, and I went home, I had to make her realize, like, look, Mom, and we asked actually Perplexity, and I was like, so what's the mortality rate for people that, how quickly after they break their hip do they pass? And it was like, it really kind of woke her up to how incredible it is to get to the physical therapist and get back in her body. You know, because I don't think we should be accepting, you know, if there's like a month ago, there's like an 80-year-old woman that did like a fucking ultra marathon. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know what I mean? It's true. Like, I mean, that says like, you know, and if that woman is no more special than anybody else. What makes her special is determination to go out and do that and put in the fucking work to make that happen for herself. But also the mind that she's created and the influence that she has around herself in order to go out and do that every day, especially when you can just so easily quit or like retire. You know what I mean? And just like be a sedentary piece of shit all the time. That's really harsh. Yeah. You know, but like, I mean, I shouldn't say that. Well, but
my dad, you know, he's a cyclist, and I know he's kind of taken this phrase and morphed it from something. I think, as a matter of fact, Will, I think when we were talking about the playfulness, we used this quote, hey, did you grow old because you stopped playing, or sorry, did you get old? Shit. Did you stop playing because you got old, or did you get old because you stopped playing?
Right, there you go.
Well, the same thing for exercising, right?
Right.
Did you stop exercising? Did you stop moving because you got old, or vice versa?
So true.
And you can probably hear my kids are out for Thanksgiving, so you can probably hear them spinning.
I can hear them
the
spinning up there,
bloody. They're spinning. They're spinning.
Yeah.
they're doing some vestibular and ocular therapy.
Exactly.
Woo, they're getting into it out there.
Well, let's. I mean, what about? Is there anything? Does this translate into greater emotional EQ or something like that? You know, we kind of talked about the body, obviously, but like anything in the emotional realm that this can help with, which I think would be very important. If it does.
No, I mean, and that's probably the biggest connection that over the last, you know, like I said, just within this training, it has been probably the most formidable part for me. And if I'm going to take somebody in the active aging population, you know, kind of in this conversation, I mean, what kind of life do you have when you feel more confident just moving without the idea of falling?
Is that the big part of it, the confidence realm? I mean, is there, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's,
right. True.
I mean, we can get into the psychology. I mean, the psychology and all the things that kind of play into just that. But once we start, you know, understanding back to just that regulation of that system and understanding, you know, how the eyes work and understanding, you know, especially with the training that I'm trying to implement and trying to connect people back to the body and really giving those tools. Yeah. And once again, I didn't create the human body. Like I just over here trying to figure it out the best I can. And that emotional regulation where, you know, we understand like when we do our balance testing, you know, it's funny because like, once you start actively breathing, and you as a yoga practitioner, you probably feel this all the time. If you hold your breath, you don't balance as well, right? I mean, it just becomes a lot more difficult. And, you know, and then the emotional regulation, you know, and especially with kind of the work that we do. And that's why I really love the vestibular training equipment that I utilize, because like I was telling you guys at the beginning, I'm really training you to be mindful without you aware of it. And when you start to get that sympathetic response and you start to feel like, oh no, I'm going to lose it. No. We're teaching you to come back to your breath. And then there's this kind of this subconscious cue as you move throughout life, because you're not going to walk out of my office spinning, doing circles. Hopefully not. But it's one of those things, like I said, the body is designed to be resilient. And that's the most important thing. And I can't just isolate one sensory somatic organ. And it's so important that when we train for the most human part of who we are, then we start to understand all the other systems and how they play together. And for me, like, it's just this ability where you feel more confident within, like I said, your own body in your own space, and where the emotional side of like feeling where something's coming on, because like I think a lot of people that I've worked with are so disconnected from how their body's feeling. I mean, they just don't.
Right. That's another value in this too.
Yeah.
Get back to the body. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, you're fine. And like, that's really the biggest cue is like, I'm not really teaching people anything. I'm reminding them.
Yeah. That's a great way to fucking put it. Like a really great. I mean, we have this, we are loaded like biologically with such incredible, I call it like biological brilliance, right? And it's like everything, it's mind and body. And it's just like, we got to get in there, and it's like, and once we do, it's like, again, like, you talked about confidence, like, like what it's like, I'm asking a question myself, like, what can't I do? You know what I mean? I'll be 53 next month, which fucking blows my mind. But like, I'm like, shut up, John. You go back to mute, John. All right, go back to mute, John.
Skin.
All right, wait. It's like that's fucked up, man. That's fucked up. I'm just kidding.
I love you, man. You look better at 53 than I do at 48.
I know.
So.
It's true though. So thanks for saying that. All right.
I know.
I mean, but like that's really, I mean, like it's like, so you want to, so aging isn't about looks as much as, I mean, it's like, and again, your looks could change if you're aging more gracefully if you're staying in your body.
Yeah.
And like I think like the big question out there for everybody is like, this training is going to help remind you, like you just said, of like, of the human being that you are, right? With all of this like fucking ability that we have. And if you're just being one of those consumers back at home, regardless of what age you are, like you are not going to be aging well, not from a vanity perspective, but from like, like from a human perspective. And I think our human beings were put on this planet to do shit, to change the world, to manipulate our environment, to make things, happier for ourselves and other people. And it's like when you're activating your body, like you're saying, and really, and this vestibular complex is so important because it puts us in the world. It's like, think of it also, it's like, it's our orientation. So I can almost imagine like, if, and where's the only place we're trying to orient to all the time? Here and now. Right. And if I'm able to like kind of find my body, like by using these, by working with you and doing these simple exercises or doing anything physical for your body, you're going to be able to get in your body and it's going to remind you where you are and who you are and like all this intuition that we have. I mean, it's just like, this is just so valuable, all of this. And it's just like, it's so nice to have a conversation about a system that is such at the most basic level of our physical humanity.
Absolutely. So,
yeah.
That's the key. That's the biggest key.
It really is. Anything else? So we're going to wrap this up. And if there's anything else that you think would be worth to help us put a bow on this conversation, Caydrick, this has been wonderful. I think, and I'll go back to this, and I'll end on this, is that, because I don't want to get into the weeds of the neurochemistry, but that's a big part of what's happening. What if somebody wants to, like, but go ahead, yeah. I'm sorry.
I mean, like I said, I can talk about this for 4 hours. I mean, I've been talking about this for 3 days out here at Spire right now. So, but
fucking nerding out. Yeah.
I think there's, just like when, you get that runner's high when you're running and you're getting into those states. I mean, we're really, I mean, I can get into the, the HRV, I can get into, the VO2 stuff, I can get into the zone 2 stuff, and I can talk about the neurochemical cocktail that your body creates naturally, the endorphins, the norepinephrine, the serotonin, the aminamide, like all the different chemicals that are cascading in your body when you experience these things. And that goes in back to, where I always talk about movement versus medicine. And I don't want, the listeners to think that I'm anti-medicine. I just think that medicine isn't the prolonged use for what the human body is already capable of naturally. And that's where this training has probably been the most profound aspect of this. And, where we talk about what we can do naturally and produce these things within ourselves naturally. And movement is probably the most important. But, you also want to focus on your gut. You want it to focus on your nutrition. We call that the second brain. And, And like I said, that's a whole nother podcast just in itself. But
the neuro diet.
Yeah, and
right.
and you know, yeah, and the neuro diet. Yeah, we put neuro in front of it, and you check that box. So,
right.
But
make millions.
But just remember how, you know, miraculous and capable the human body is, and that's ultimately the message that I really want to get across to as many people as possible, is that you're capable a lot more than what you realize. And you know, you might be fighting a lot of this pharmaceutical industrial complex and the fast food industry, but you know, there's nothing, you know, in this world that's more valuable than your health, your vitality, and your, you know, keeping your faculties as you age. And that's where, as anything, I want that message, you know, for the person to remember that they have so much more in them than they realize. And it just takes a little bit of work over a prolonged period of time. And when you get to that stage, life seems to open up doors that you didn't even know exist.
Yeah, great point. Really good point. And it's like, and think about, and last thing I'll say is like, think about the things that inspire us. You know, think about like, it's like, it's not like somebody winning, you know, a Fortnite game. You know, that's not making headlines. You know, it's like, you know, Alex Honnold, like, you know, free climbing El Capitan, which occurs, you know, all these different athletic feats that people do. You know, because this is like, because we know deeply in our biology, in our humanity, like that we have this ability. And it just takes a little bit of work to get out there. Not necessarily, you don't have to go, you know, free solo El Capitan, but like you can definitely go out and walk.
You can definitely go out.
Yeah, definitely like, you know, I mean,
don't go free solo.
I know. We're not advocating.
Please don't go say Will said to go.
I know, but you know, but hey, someday you can maybe like rappel. You know what I mean? You can do all that kind of stuff and have some fun in your body.
Yeah,
so
I want people to be capable of, you know, hanging out with their kids, lifting them over their head, spinning around.
No shit, exactly.
And, you know, and when they do fall, I want them to be able to get back up on their own and have that strength and have that willingness to keep doing it again. Get back on that horse.
And how much love and inspiration do you experience when you're able to do that, regardless of what age? And like, how does that ripple effect just like expand, you know, not just for you, but your family, but then, you know, if you're happy and joyful because you have this ability, then how does that translate into your work, into your community, into the rest of your life? And it's like, you know, I think we can avoid a lot of the fucking depression that we're experiencing by just being so sedentary and being so, you know, secluded and just like stuck to a screen, that like a lot of it is fucking just a bunch of shit anyway. So awesome. Caydrick, this has been wonderful. John, send us home, my brother.
Yeah, well, Cade, man, great stuff. Hope you travel back safely and have a fantastic Thanksgiving, because this is going to be pushed out well after Thanksgiving. But for you and Will, hope you guys enjoy Thanksgiving. Thanks for bearing with me as I had to mute a couple of times as I've got my little one over here drawing, and I'm sure she's working her vestibular system and ocular system and taking all the notes. But hey, awesome stuff here, man. Love what you're doing. I know it's helping, not just with balance, but with anxiety, with sleep, with rewiring the brain. And it's phenomenal. And it's definitely not something that I would have thought of, you know, 3 months ago. So love the work you're doing. And I'm going to continue working with your brother. And if people wanted to reach out to you, Cade, I know you're on LinkedIn. What's the best way for them to find out more about you and the work? I mean,
LinkedIn, Instagram, it's just caydrick.co. But I also have my website, which is exitzone.com, where you can actually get one of these neurofunctional training routines if you want, or you can reach out to me anytime through any of those other platforms, and I'll be happy to send those things and connect with you.
Awesome. Great.
Right on, man. And I know that for a fact that Cade will send that stuff over to you guys. Well, I don't even remember when this airs. I want to say it 15th. Airs right around Christmas.
15th.
Yeah, so
December 15th.
Yeah, again, happy Thanksgiving to you guys, and for the audience listening, happy Christmas, Merry Christmas to you guys. Yeah, that's all we've got. Until next time, take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Peace.
Thank Caydrick. Peace, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.